Founded in 1833 by utopian Christian visionaries, the Oberlin colony occupied land that had been home to indigenous peoples. By 1835, the town and its college had become an outspoken center of anti-slavery and abolitionism. Inspired by the college's acceptance of students irrespective of color, Black and white supporters of this egalitarian ideal came to the fledgling settlement to further the cause. Not everyone in town was a radical opponent of slavery, but the majority were, and the community talked openly about various ways to end slavery, including through moral persuasion and preaching, boycotts, lectures, publications, petitions, laws, and voting. More than a few people were willing to break the law to assist freedom seekers who fled their bondage, providing them welcome, and if they desired, assistance in their efforts to make their way north to Canada, where, under British rule, slavery was abolished the same year Oberlin was planted in Ohio. Dubbed the Underground Railroad, the routes these brave travelers took to escape enslavement followed many forms, but rarely included actual underground travels or trains. Rather, the Underground Railroad was a series of secret networks that helped fugitives make their way out of the oppressive conditions of enslavement. Slavery was a part of America's history since its colonial roots. By the time the town of Oberlin was founded in 1833, over 2 million men, women, and children were claimed as property, subjugated by interconnected systems of law, economics, and racial discrimination. Although the state of Ohio had never permitted slavery, national laws required the return of those who fled from people who claimed to own them. Those who helped escapees could be fined or sent to jail, so participants in this freedom movement usually shared little information. Enslaved people always fought for freedom and identity, sometimes through subtle protests that slowed work, occasionally through outright rebellion, which was severely punished, and some by running away, an action that endangered themselves and even their families left behind. Information about pathways to freedom was passed secretly by word of mouth. Individuals and groups took off, sometimes in a planned way, but often suddenly, when their family was threatened with separation or their own lives were in danger. Some daring people found passage on boats, carriages, or later rail lines, but most people escaped on foot and forged their way north through woods, fields, and quiet roads at night. Many crossed the Ohio River when it froze so they could avoid busy bridges. As they traveled, most did not find agents or friends, as they were sometimes called, until they reached Ohio. These contacts could provide food, shelter, clothing, and perhaps a clandestine carriage or wagon ride to the next stop. But the way was ever changing, and the Underground Railroad was never a single route. Oberlin's Underground Railroad story is less about secrecy and more about helping. According to several sources, there was no more important junction of the underground routes in northern Ohio than Oberlin. Oberlin's Black community was central to Oberlin's abolitionist work, including speakers, supporters, students, and agents of freedom. About 1 out of every 5 Oberlin residents was Black, and while there were limits on social integration, all races participated in schools, downtown businesses, college classes, and public events. Some of Oberlin's Black residents had been born free, some had been emancipated, others had purchased their own freedom, and some came to Oberlin escaped from enslavement. We will never know how many people came to or through Oberlin on the Underground Railroad. We rarely read about successful escapees because there was little to say when everything went smoothly. Freedom seekers arrived in the town, were provided shelter, food, and whatever they needed to either continue on or begin new lives within the community. and many choose to stay, among them Sabram Cox, who attended classes at the preparatory school of Oberlin College before farming, and Sarah Baker was known to take in freedom seekers after settling in Oberlin. But others continued their journey with so-called slave catchers in hot pursuit. In the early 1840s, Jefferson and Jane Johnson barely escaped to Canada thanks to a community rally and a break from jail. Another group of freedom seekers took advantage of a clever ploy that decoyed the slave catchers in one direction, while the real freedom seekers escaped in another. The black men who acted as bait risked their own freedom to secure the freedom of others. Most famously, in 1858, a slave catcher recognized a runaway named John Price, who had been living in Oberlin for about 2 years. The bounty hunters communicated with Price's enslaver and obtained the legal paperwork necessary to take Price back to Maysville, Kentucky, and slavery. However, when the slave catchers, a federal marshal, and his assistant attempted to take Price out of the county, a crowd of people caught up with them at a hotel in Wellington, 8 miles south of Oberlin. When peaceful negotiations failed, the crowd rushed into the hotel, hustled John Price out, and raced him back to Oberlin in a wagon. Price stayed hidden in town for a few days before, it is said, he was safely escorted to freedom in Canada. 37 black and white men were charged with breaking the fugitive slave law, and 20 spent time in jail in Cleveland. 2 were put on trial and found guilty before the case was dropped for legal complications. After Abraham Lincoln's election to the presidency in 1860, Southern states began to secede to protect their investment in slavery. Over 1,000 men from Oberlin, black and white, became Union soldiers during the Civil War, resulting in the Emancipation Proclamation and then the 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendments, abolishing slavery, granting black citizenship, and providing voting rights to black men. The brief period of Reconstruction saw a vibrant quest for racial justice, but too soon gave way to a period of racial intimidation, violence, and segregation in the North as well as the South. Oberlin, too, capitulated to racial discrimination. Records and memories document patterns of exclusion in housing, jobs, banking, and education. Decades of disadvantage shaped the inequality we continue to see in Oberlin today. So where can we find Oberlin's Underground Railroad? It wasn't here at the Oberlin Underground Railroad Center, although the community intends to interpret this powerful history in this unique building. This rare gas holder building was constructed in 1889, over 20 years after the Civil War and the end of slavery. But historians have documented over 13 Oberlin houses where freedom seekers stayed, at least 3 of which are still standing. The Bardwell House at 181 East Lorraine Street, DePease Copeland Farm and House at 46785 West Hamilton Street, and the Evans House at 33 East Vine Street. As you visit these sites, you may want to reflect on the courage of freedom seekers and the audacity of Oberlin's abolitionists, black and white. They can inspire us today. They were generous, giving help without restriction. They recognized the unfairness that shaped their world and became advocates and activists for justice. Many people like to think they would have been agents of the Underground Railroad. Would you?